Hi, my name is Nina. Today I'm going to tell you all my testimony. This is something that I feel in my heart and in my spirit that I need to do. Before I start my testimony, I just want to let everyone know that this video is not just for believers. Really, this video, I'm aiming to target those who aren't believers, for women, young women, girls who have been in the shoes that I've been in and who are in the shoes that I have been in. And for those who don't, for those who don't believe in God, for those that don't understand God, who don't understand the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, because I too was in that same boat. I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. My mother and my father weren't married very long. They got divorced when I was around 3.5 years old. I don't remember the process or anything, but I do know that they got divorced when I was at a very young age. So the process of divorce I don't think was too painful for me. I lived with my dad. I lived with my dad growing up. My dad and my former stepmother, they were married up until I was maybe, I know I was in 8th grade. While they were married, there was a good bit of violence in that house. I wasn't too happy being in that house all the time, so a lot of my time was spent outside and with friends. But my dad, he met my stepmom now, and it took me a little bit to open up to her and to befriend my stepmom. But through the years, I grew close to her. We grew close, and we formed a friendship and a bond that was pretty awesome. I definitely looked at her like a friend, and she taught me a lot of things. I appreciate all of that she's done. Prom was coming up, and my dad and my stepmom introduced me to a guy who was 6 years older than me, to be my prom date. When I was younger, I don't remember how old I was, I promised my dad that I would not have sex until I was 18 years old. I promised him that. Long story short, that guy and I, we had sex, and so I told my dad, and he convinced me to convince the guy to marry me. We got married at the court, and we weren't married long. I started cheating on him when we were less than a year into our marriage. I made him breakfast, and after he finished eating, I told him what needed to be done and that we just needed to get a divorce. So he left. So while being married to this guy, I was also introduced to alcohol, and that was the beginning of my toxic relationship with alcohol. I liked the way that it made me feel. I was working at the airport at the time at one of their kiosk stores, and there was a guy. I did not love the guy. I just wanted to not have to live with my grandparents. So we were dating for about 3 years. While I was dating, I was also introduced to weed, or what a lot of people say, marijuana. And I started abusing that while at the same time drinking. I was also introduced to strip clubs. I don't know, I thought it was pretty interesting to see the women there make money the way that they did. While I was dating him, I also met another guy. I was working at a restaurant, and I met this young guy, totally different than the norm or any other guy I had been with. He was just very open to a lot of things, and long story short, I ended up breaking up with the guy that I was with, and I moved in with the new guy. So as you can see, there was like a cycle here. There had been a cycle. I left one guy and started dating another guy, and there's cheating going on. So when I started living with the third guy, he and I were working at the same restaurant. It was family owned. His aunt and uncle owned that place, and they allowed their employees to drink. So we drank a lot. We took a lot of shots. And that's when things, I think, started to really get dark for me, because not only was I drinking just about every day, but I felt like while I worked there and while I was dating him, I was exposed to a lot of darkness and just evilness. Not to say that he was evil or like his family was evil, but it was just the atmosphere that I was always surrounded by started to get to me. I started experiencing blackouts. I started experiencing panic attacks. The guy that I was dating at the time, I met this girl while I was working there, and I wouldn't say I was struggling to make money, but I definitely wanted to make more money. I wanted to travel. I wanted to buy things that I wanted. I just wanted to enjoy life. And so the money that I was making at the restaurant just wasn't enough. It covered rent and the food that I ate, and that's it. So I met this girl while I was there, and she was very nice. I found out where she worked, and I thought, okay, cool. I've been to strip clubs before. Like, that's pretty cool. She's really nice. Never talked to a dancer before. And then I told my boyfriend at the time, and he thought it was pretty awesome. He thought, I guess in his mind, that I could just make money from there, and we could do all the things we wanted to do. We can buy the things we want to buy. And I started to think the same thing. Like, okay, cool, I can do that. So he started to tell me to talk to her and see if I could get in, and started to put all these things in my mind, like, oh, you see how much money she makes, and wouldn't it be so great? And again, I thought it was a great idea. So eventually I talked to her and asked her if she could get me into the place that she was working at, and auditioned, and I did get the job. When I started that job, I think that's definitely when things took a turn for the worse. I was starting to experience sleep paralysis. The devil would torment me in my sleep. And if you don't know what sleep paralysis is, it's like you're half awake, but you're still asleep. And like you can see what's going on outside of your sleeping, if that makes sense. So I could see demons. I could see like claws coming at me and getting closer and closer almost every single time that I was having sleep paralysis. There were times where I would black out, and at one point I tried to throw myself out of the window, like banging up against the window, trying to break the window and I guess throw myself out of the window. I don't remember if it was, I think it was after that day. So this was 2013. After that day, I had a dream. And the dream was, I was hanging out with some friends. We were about to get back into one of my friends' Jeeps, or like an SUV. And before I got in the car, my phone started ringing. I looked at my phone and it said Jesus calling. And so I hung up the phone and I proceeded to get into the car, and again, my phone started ringing and it said, Jesus calling. And I just kept thinking, I don't know anyone named Jesus. Who is calling me? So I hung up my phone again. And out of the clear blue, and I to this day remember it so clearly, a voice, a very loud voice said, call me. And while the voice was saying that, I could feel like shaking around. It almost felt like the bed was shaking, but the bed wasn't shaking. And then I just woke up, and I was like, what? Was that real? Like, did I really hear God talking to me? It was a voice that I never heard before, but I knew it was God. I knew it wasn't anything to fear. So I told my mom about the dream, and I started praying. I hadn't prayed in years. I hadn't said God's name in years. I haven't looked to Jesus in years. I haven't read the Bible in years. I don't even think I ever read the Bible. I started reading the Bible here and there. I started seeking out ways to learn how to become a Christian. I went to church and I got baptized again. I rededicated my life to the Lord. Around 2015 is when I really started to get serious in my walk with the Lord. Throughout the years, I have dropped a lot of things from my life. Friends, old friends from that time, that dark time in my life. I no longer drink. I no longer listen to the music that I listened to. I see things differently and I hear things differently, and my perspective is a lot clearer. The Lord literally rescued me and pulled me out of the darkness. As I get closer and closer in my walk with the Lord and my relationship with Jesus, things change. The way that I am today is completely different than how I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I started this channel to heal, to get my mind off of all of those things, to get my mind off of drinking, to get my mind off of dancing and all of the things from the past. And you can see how I've evolved. And that's what happens when you finally surrender and you let go. And you allow the Lord to work in your life, you change. Material things don't matter. Makeup doesn't matter. Hair stuff doesn't matter. Clothes don't matter. Jewelry doesn't matter. Things don't matter. All that matters is where your heart is and where you're going to end up when you die, when you're no longer on this earth. Life has just started for me, like the beginning of a good life. And even though it's been a good 3 years of solely walking with the Lord, it's only the beginning and it's only going to get better. My heart has truly been restored and renewed. My thoughts have been restored and renewed. Everything happens for a reason. And I think this is part of God's plan. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you soon.